What's up, everybody? My name's Sean, and welcome to the How to Hero YouTube channel, where basically we want to bring out the hero that's inside of all of us. Today, the goal is going to be how to be less socially awkward. It's something that I used to have trouble with when I was younger. Luckily for me, it didn't last too long. I think depending on how you're raised and depending on the kind of circle of friends that you have, depending on a lot of different factors, you're going to be either more or less inclined to be dealing with people. And really, I just wanted to get right into it. We'll just go through 5 different ways that you can be less socially awkward. The first thing you need to do is give yourself credit for getting involved in the situation, right? Give yourself some credit, a little bit of a pat on the back, if you will, for involving yourself. It takes some strength, some fortitude to open yourself up and to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable is one of the most difficult things that we'll do as humans. It opens us up to different types of experiences, and some are positive, some are negative. But ultimately, in order to grow, in order to really move on and make improvements upon ourselves, we need to be vulnerable. You're going to find that as you move through life, when you're at your most vulnerable, that's usually when you make the most progress, whether it's internally or with external things, such as relationships, jobs, things like that. The more you open yourself up, the more you let other people know that you're genuine, and the more you can then really let go of some of the hesitations that you had. So first, give yourself credit for even like pursuing this type of knowledge, trying to make yourself better at this type of thing. Social interactions are, a crux of our existence here. We're a social being, and it's important for us to recognize that these are some of the ways that we need to be better at it. And just by involving yourself in it, you're already like taking the right step and moving forward with that. So a little pat on the back. I know you haven't done anything yet, but the intent is there, and intent is king, always, or queen. So first of all, the fear that you feel when you're engaging in a social situation, the fear that you feel is not you. That's fake. The fear is your ego saying, you're not good enough. They're going to be making fun of you. They're going to be judging you. Both parties are going to be experiencing this fear. Some people will experience it more than other people, but both people have their ego kind of yammering in the back of their mind saying, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to pay attention to these different things, etc. And really what we need to do is focus on paying attention to the things that are going to serve us. And really that's letting go of a lot of that fear, understanding that the fear it's not our true selves. It's not really going to help us in this situation. What we need to do is consider that fear is just a manifestation of ego being kind of, self-preservation. It's this self-defense kind of mechanism. And it's, you're already scared of a situation that hasn't even occurred yet. You're making yourself hyped up to be scared of a situation that really doesn't have any bearing on anything. Even if the outcome of it, even if it goes poorly, let's say, what's the real detriment there? How's that really going to impact your life? You really need to consider the gravity of the situation. Most social interactions that we have are pretty minor, and it's in those minor ones where we can practice being present and being more in line with our true selves, less in line with fear and less in line with guilt and other different feelings that we're going to have. Getting hard on ourselves before we've even engaged in the practice of like having that social interaction is not going to help. And I know that's easy to say, and it's another thing to put into practice. The best thing we can do is continue to practice and just be kind of aware of some of the negativity that we're hearing from our ego, some of the various things that we're being told kind of internally about the situation. So, as you go into it and you start to hear that voice saying, you're not good enough, or they're going to make fun of you, or they're going to judge you, whatever it is, realize too that, they're not, most likely. And these types of limiting beliefs are going to hold you back. What you really need to do is just push them aside and move forward. The third thing that you can do is focus on pretending that the person already likes you. Now, this is interesting because what it essentially does is as you engage with other people in the world, you get a lot back of what you put out. What you put into the world is what's reflected back to you. You'll read about this in the Law of Attraction. And I'm not talking about The Secret. I think that movie was a little bit before its time, but the Law of Attraction is a real thing. And when you put out into the world that you're this nervous, anxious, ball of nerves, and that you're super concerned about what the person thinks of you, they're going to pick up on that energy. Some people are going to pick up on it, like if they're empaths, they're going to pick up on it very, very strongly. But all of us as humans have that capability to pick up on this energy. They're going to notice, they're going to feel like something's off, and it's going to weird them out a little bit, because they're not, especially if they're confident themselves, they're not going to really understand. You guys are kind of working with each other on different wavelengths. They're up here, they have some confidence, and you're down here, and you guys aren't going to connect really. You need to approach it thinking like, this person likes me, they're interested in what I have to say, and I'm interested in what they have to say, and we're going to get along splendidly. And when you approach it that way, you give yourself the opportunity to be in that type of social interaction. The fourth thing that even people that are good at social interactions have trouble with sometimes is focus on listening. A lot of people will sit there and they'll stare you in the eyes, and in their mind they're thinking, oh, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that. When are they going to stop talking so I can say my thing? And what ends up happening is you're not giving attention to the person that you're dealing with. So you need to really let them say their piece, think about what they're saying, and then offer something that adds on to that. And it's okay to talk about yourself, of course. And it's okay to consider where the conversation is going to go. But when you focus on where the conversation is going to go or what you're going to say next, you're basically going to give this air of absentness in the conversation. You're going to make them aware that you're in your head. Some people will pick up on it more, similar to the last tip I gave. But if you're not in the conversation, if you're not invested in what the other person's saying, they're not going to be invested in what you're saying, and that's going to come across to both of you, and then both of you guys are going to start to feel a little bit awkward. You've probably heard this in like dating tips and stuff like that. Ask about them. If you're not sure what to say about yourself, if you're not sure what topics to bring up, it's so easy. Just ask about them. Ask about what they're into. Ask them to elaborate on something they just told you, and then pay attention to their answers. Eventually, you'll find little breaks in the conversation where you have something to add. And even if you don't, people love talking about themselves. They really do. Almost 90% of the people I speak with, you can just ask them about them, and they'll let you know. And when people are talking about themselves, they tend to get dopamine hits. They tend to be, really into it. They tend to enjoy that. And you take advantage of that. It takes a lot of the pressure off of you as involved in the conversation. You don't need to be so worried about what the next topic is or how do you transition. How do you transition from one topic to the next? You don't need to worry so much about that. Now, if you're in a job interview or something like that, this is a little bit different. And I'll probably do a video on job interviews or that type of thing later. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in that. But what you really need to do is honestly just listen. They're gonna drop they'll drop some hints as to where they want the conversation to go and what they're interested in. And if you focus on that and then focus on adding to that, you're gonna be in a good spot. And if you don't find anything to say, you just politely excuse yourself. You just say, "Oh, thanks so much. It was nice talking to you. I have to take off. Will you excuse me?" That type of thing. Depending on the environment you're in, right? If it's formal, less formal, whatever. But if you can't think of anything, you just say, "It was nice talking to you. hopefully we'll talk later, and that type of thing. The last piece, and probably the most important, is people aren't as judgmental as you think they are. The same way you're not as judgmental as other people think you are. People don't concern themselves with these minor things that other people are doing. If they do, then they're not necessarily people you want to worry about. Most people, the majority of people, healthy individuals, are focused on their own goals. They're focused on their life. They have all of this ego and all of these different things that they're thinking about going on in the back of their mind. And almost always, they're just not concerned. They're not concerned about what's going on with the person, and they did this awkward tick or something like that. They're just not worried about it. The same way where you walk around most of the day, you're kind of in your own world, right? You're thinking about the things that are relevant to you or relevant to your world, the things that you perceive to be important to you. Other people are the same. They're not worried about you. And it's when you start to realize that, and start to realize that they're not out to pick holes in the way that you've interacted with them. They're not there to do that. You'll start to find some more comfort and start to understand that, even if you make a bit of a fool of yourself, it's really not that big of a deal. Most of them will forget it. And in fact, our brains tend to hang on to the positive, memorable moments of the conversation as well. So as long as you're not mean to the people, you're being a positive person, you're being kind, that kind of thing, and you're listening, they're gonna feel good about the conversation when they walk away. If you've let them talk about themselves a lot, they'll probably feel even better. What a lot of people don't realize is when they talk about themselves in the conversation, the other person can barely say anything, and the person who's been talking about themselves are going to walk away and they're going to think, oh, that was great. I loved that. And even though, not a lot was said, maybe there wasn't a lot of back and forth, but they're still going to feel pretty good about it. And what you really need to do is just understand that people aren't here to make fun of you. They're not here to be the bullies that you may have experienced when you were younger. Children bully each other because of these insecurities and self-esteem issues that they have. As we grow into adulthood, we still have a lot of these things, but we understand that we can't behave that way. And we also, stop worrying about reflecting that onto other people or projecting that, I should say. And when you're kids, these things are pretty typical. People make fun of each other. You could do the littlest thing and then be called some name for the rest of your life. And that's not great. But it doesn't tend to continue into adulthood and even into the late teens. People tend to move on past that. They tend to recognize the immaturity in it, and they tend to migrate more towards a more mature and understanding back and forth and dialogue. So I hope you found those tips helpful. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thanks so much for your time. I hope you guys found the tips helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments below if you have something that I missed, or if there's something, if you want me to go more detail on anything, I can do that as well. But just let me know what you think.